Hello and welcome back to the Learning Network. You're with me, Kell Bell. Today we're going to talk about how you can be more strategic in community and family studies because time is so precious. Time is our most valuable resource as well as our energy and our well-being, but it's really important for you as a busy CAFS teacher to take a couple of minutes, 5 minutes max, to have a look at where the concepts you're teaching are further on in the syllabus. Where does your assessment schedule, your scope and sequence fit in the big picture of community and family studies to help set your students up for success, to also begin with the end in mind? Now, the HSC is still the examination that our kids are gearing up for. Yes, it's not all about the HSC. Our course is about life. CAFS is life. But it's really important that we're still doing things in our classroom to set our kids up for success every single time we make a decision. And I call it the method to my madness because there's always a reason behind my decisions in CAFS. Like, okay, we're going to change our IRP and bet it with our option. We're going to have those really good connections there. Okay, let's make that decision. That decision stemmed from back in 2015 from looking at some of our RAP data. We noticed that our RAP data was quite low for our option, especially for the 15 marker. And I was like, okay, what can we do about this? How can we get the kids to embed their knowledge, understanding, and skills a lot deeper for the option? Now, if you're fairly new to CAFS, the option is the game changer, and we'll talk about that next week in community and family studies. It really sets the state apart. We have kids who completely NA that part of the paper, and we have kids who do very, very well getting in those 13s, 14s, and 15s out of 15. So it's really important that we're making strategic decisions every step of the way to set our kids up for success. So today I'm going to share with you 3 or 4 things, maybe 4 things, about what you can do simply to make your life a bit easier as a CAFS teacher, to make things more strategic. The first one is to have a helicopter view of our course. When our syllabus was amended back in 2013, and when all of us had kind of no idea what these changes were, I remember sitting down, was when we lived in Sydney, getting our syllabus out. It was actually maternity leave. I had just had a baby, and I remember highlighting and tagging it and flagging it and going, okay, this brand new syllabus, where does it take us? And what I started to notice early on were there were lots of connections across the course. That was done intentionally. That was done really strategically by the NESA Writing Committee, Board of Studies back then, to make those changes so we could embed that content early on in Year 11 and then teach it throughout the Year 11 course to make a really big impact in Year 12. What I still see happening in CAFS classrooms all around New South Wales are teachers just teaching it in silo, teachers teaching each of the Year 11 units of work without looking at the big picture, without looking ahead to see what's actually involved in Year 12. Something very basic that I shared with CAFS teachers last night was something simple like looking at wellbeing. We teach it from day dot. It's the very first dot point that we look at in Year 11. It should be taught first. I know there are still presenters in professional learning saying that, it doesn't matter in Year 11. You can maybe start with families and communities, maybe start with individuals and groups. I completely disagree. You have to start with resource management. You have to start with that. That's the basis of our whole course. Wellbeing is that umbrella concept that filters into our whole course. You have to start with that. Anyway, I really think that the idea of wellbeing needs to be started well in Year 11, that very first set of, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 lessons, and show the kids, and this is what I did, not straight away, later on in my career in the classroom, I would show the kids, okay, here's like our exam rubric for Year 12. Here's what I'm gearing you towards, because there's a 15 marker in your HSC, the last question on the paper, that you have to talk about wellbeing. How do these concepts, how do these ideas link back to wellbeing? Let me know in the chat if you have trialed this yourself. Lots of our CAFS collective members have been doing this. but they didn't always do that. And what they've said to me inside our CAFS Collective membership is, Kell, that small decision that small suggestion you made has made a significant impact on our kids. They can then link that to wellbeing. They can then look at their content and make it really strategic as they go through. It's not just impacted on our knowledge, but our results are also really improving. Again, very simple things that you can do to make a very big impact on your kids. So introducing the rubric straight away, the year 11 and 12, the year 12 rubric for the exam straight away, showing the kids a marking criteria where the kids have to talk about wellbeing for the part C. We'll get to that as well next week. Having an assessment task for families and communities where you can link back to wellbeing in every single part of, of that particular unit of work in year 11, and say, okay, well, instead of just doing a whole heap of random short answer questions, let's make the kids do a 15 marker that links back to wellbeing, that helps them with those skills in year 12. Now, our beautiful CAFS Collective member, Michelle Skinner, she's at Bridgetine. We did lots of work in around their assessment tasks. And one of the things that I said was change the scope and sequence. Let's bring families and communities second. Let's not assess individuals and groups. Individuals and groups, just between us, it's a bit substandard. I'm going to say that out loud. It's still very 9 and 10 PE content heavy with leadership and power and communication and conflict resolution. When we do have a rewrite in 2028, I think is the timeline, I would love to see that taken out a lot, because I think it's very substandard and it very much belongs in PDHPE, and you can see that in the content. Anyway, so I kind of go less content, less connection. Let's move individuals and groups to the term 3 because you have less time as well. Let's not assess that. And let's assess families and communities and make sure we have a 15 marker that's helping the kids for the end game, helping them be set up for success in year 12 in that option. Now, Michelle just hasn't done that. Michelle, our member from the CAFS Collective, multiple members have seen the impact of that very small but strategic decision to move their scope and sequence, to not assess individuals and groups, to assess families and communities, and have that 15 marker as a question in an assessment task. Now, even in our end of course exam for year 11, I provide teachers number of different questions that are geared towards that 15 marker. So they get to know that wellbeing, they get to use wellbeing into their answer. So look, hopefully that kind of gives you some sort of scope. That's one very small thing you can do, is be more strategic with what you do in and around content. In terms of being more strategic, what you can also do is make sure we're starting to embed what I call concepts all the way through what you're teaching. So rather than kind of going, okay, we're going to teach stuff to do with support in silo, I want you to have a look, once you've done that big helicopter view, I want you to have a look at where else support fits in the syllabus. Again, make it really strategic and look at how you can bring examples from groups in context, parenting and caring, your options into that first part of our unit, our resource management unit around support. Formal, more so than informal support. Informal support is in family and society interactions, but not in the other two options. So start to be very strategic about what you're teaching to the kids. I said last night to our CAFS teachers who were online, I said, don't make it about you. Yes, the personal stories are great. The connections with the kids are good, but let's start to introduce in year 11 some of our groups in context. Look at youth, rural and remote families, examples from that. When we look at types of support, we look at then maybe types of services from groups in context. When we talk about formal support in resource management, we start to talk about some of those examples we might refer to, like Karitani, Tresillian, Raising Children Network, from parenting and caring into year 11. Hopefully you get my drift here. what you're doing every single time you make a decision about what you're teaching, you're thinking about the big picture ahead. You're preempting what the kids are going to be doing in the HSC. The third thing is really about the skills that you're embedding. Now, I know that I've said this before, and I'll get on my soapbox multiple times talking about this. Peel, so your paragraph structure needs to be very strategic. Whole faculty, definitely. Whole school would be preferred, a whole school approach to paragraphing. The second one is around approaching your question. Run far is my go-to to break down a question, and I've done a couple of little videos recently that I'll pop onto social media around that. So keep an eye out for that one of what it looks like. But inside the CAFS Collective membership, everything I'm talking about right now, there are multiple resources already inside the membership portal that you can literally use tomorrow. You can pick up and go, wow, okay, here's a scaffold for Run Far. Here are some blank sections for the kids to fill out. I'm going to practice that with the kids. Here's, some very simple things to help them with Peel. Here's some sentence starters. Here are activities that show that connection across the course. I've done the hard work for you. I know that time is precious. I've done that work for you. So the other thing, when we make strategic decisions, we're also thinking about the assessment tasks as well for Year 12. So working out your scope and sequence, like, is it the most ideal scope and sequence? I still hear a lot of teachers assessing parenting and caring. Now, I don't think that's setting the kids up for success. IRP has to happen. There has to be an assessment for IRP. You could embed another area. You could embed something like groups in context or your option. I think there still has to be an assessment task on the option and groups in context. I don't want to see double ups. Don't have an assessment task on groups and parenting. It just becomes too much for the kids. Obviously, a trial needs to happen. An examination has to happen. Parenting and caring, get rid of those assessment tasks. And if you want to pick my brain, I've got mountains of examples and like actual samples to use and to show you inside the CAFS Collective membership. Because the kids need to be set up for success. Groups in context, second to the option, is probably a bit harder. Kids always bomb out on questions around advocacy, policy and legislation, community attitudes, that high order back end of the course, especially for that category B stuff. The kids often find it a little bit tricky. They get quite a few comments confused. So I am strongly recommending you have a look at the bigger picture of the course and being very strategic about what you do. So to quickly recap, we're going to have a helicopter view of the course and see where all the bits fit together. We're going to be more strategic with what we're teaching and when we're teaching specific content. Again, thinking about the end in mind. Where does it sit within the HSC? Let's bring some of those HSC examples into Year 11. And number 3 is being a little bit more strategic around assessment, scope and sequencing to make it really practical for the kids. Because if we make these very small tweaks in our CAFS classroom, we're really setting our kids up for success for the end game. And I think there's so much opportunity in Year 11 that we're still not taking advantage of. So if you're looking for support, if you're looking for ongoing resources to meet you where you are at, and we have our current SOM in the membership, we have quite a few senior markers in the membership. We've got teachers who have been teaching the course for 20 odd years. We also have CAFS teachers, and I call it the messy middle, who are kind of like 8 to 10 years in and still really, they're still quite confident in what they're doing, but they're looking at ramping up their game in terms of strategy and skills with the kids. Or you might be all the way at the other end at the beginning, a newbie. You might have been thrown the syllabus like I was when I first started teaching 20 years ago in 2004. Or you might be teaching out of faculty, and there's quite a few teachers like that, super experienced, TAS teachers, food tech. We have quite a few English teachers who are teaching CAFS in our membership. No matter where you are in your journey or in New South Wales, having access to ongoing support is very different to what happens in other places. So the CAFS Collective is open. We can't wait to support you. And if you want to have access to ongoing resources, literally things that you want, Kell, I'd love to see this. Okay, next masterclass, Kell will have that ready for you. So the learnnet.com wellbeing.com/collective is where you need to go. And it'll be my absolute pleasure to welcome you into our mid-year intake of the CAFS Collective. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.